Hi, everyone. When I was growing up in Sun Prairie, Wisconsin, my friends and I had a ritual. Whenever we would pass a cemetery, we would hold our breath. The idea was that if we breathed in, the spirits roaming the cemetery would sense an opportunity and enter us through our breath, thus possessing us. We also had a similar ritual whenever we saw a hearse on the street. I'm have a sneaking suspicion that a lot of you listeners out there had similar rituals. Of course, I grew up in the 80s, so this may date me a little bit. But back then, fear was really deeply rooted into the idea of death and dying, at least from what I remember. My friends and I didn't really talk about death, and we certainly didn't embrace death. One of my favorite movies of all time, When Harry Met Sally, has a wonderful scene where Harry, played by Billy Crystal, is talking to Sally, played by Meg Ryan, about death. It's at the beginning of the movie, and they're driving from Chicago to New York City. Harry uses this opportunity to celebrate his dark side by talking to Sally about how much he thinks about death. I'm going to do my best impressions here. Harry says, "Do you ever think about death?" Sally goes, "Yes." Harry said, "Sure you do. A fleeting thought that drifts in and out of the transom of your mind. I spend hours. I spend days." Sally says, "And you think this makes you a better person?" Harry says, "Look, when that shit comes down, I'm going to be prepared and you're not. That's all I'm saying." Sally says, "And in the meantime, you're going to ruin your whole life thinking about it." I was such a Sally. Uh, This is how I felt about death and dying back then. It was a fleeting thought, and I didn't identify with the people at my school who wore all black and spent hours and days thinking about death. To me, it felt subversive. Well, fast forward to now. Voila, I work in the death industry. It may seem unlikely given my cheerful disposition, my Sally esque persona, but I found that by contemplating death, I'm actually much happier in my life. And it draws me to people like our guest today, Colleen McCool-Pierce. Colleen definitely turns heads and inspires conversations wherever she goes. First of all, she drives a hearse. I mean, how cool is that? Secondly, she dresses in a way that inspires engagement. I remember the business card she gave me when I first met her. It invited people who were uneasy with her appearance or her choice of transportation to check out her specially curated book list of death positive reading material. I loved her instantly. She's the friend that you want to have at your dinner table. She's the friend that you want to have in your life. And I'm so excited to introduce you all to my friend and fellow death doula, Colleen McCool-Pierce. Welcome to Before You Go, the official podcast of Abode Contemplative Care for the Dying. At Abode, our mission is that we live in a world where death is not feared, and we live fully until we die. And we'd like to make that happen before we go. I'm Natalie Buster, yoga, volunteer, and doula director at Abode in San Antonio, Texas. Welcome to Before You Go.
Hi, Natalie.
Oh, look at you! How fabulous! Where are you right now?
I am in my closet. I'm hanging out in my garage that has been converted to my closet slash costuming studio slash reading nook. It's my a lot of slashes in there, but it's my spot.
Well, to me, you are kind of the multi-hyphenate slashed kind of girl. Tell our listeners a little bit about yourself. Like, what are all of the things that you do on a daily basis?
I do a lot. I wear a lot of hats, but I love all of them. Like you said, I'm a death doula and I volunteer at Abode, which is always so fun and I love it. And then my bread and butter comes from costume design. So that's what I do as like my 9 to 5. And when I'm not being a death doula or a costume designer, I'm being a mother to a 6-month-old little boy and a wife to my husband.
Oh, I love that. Oh my gosh. And like I said in my intro, like everyone is so lucky to know you. I mean, you are just so much fun. You shoot straight from the hip. You shoot straight from the hip.
Yes.
which is really refreshing and nice. And you aren't afraid of death. You don't shy away from conversations about death.
No, not at all. I actually find a lot like you said that me contemplating death and thinking about it helps me live my life so much more fully. I'm a lot less timid whenever it comes into making decisions and even small ones like what am I going to wear for the day? I don't sort of have this fear, I think, of like perception that other people may have because there have genuinely been times where I think to myself, well, one day I'm going to die. And every single person that may or may not like my outfit today is also going to die. So why does it matter? I can just wear whatever I want. I can interact with people in fun and unique ways. I feel like thinking about death and really taking it to heart helps you be a lot more open to things and opportunities around you.
Oh gosh, that's such a perfect way to say it because, hey, we got this one shot, right? We only have this one life to live that we know of. And so why not make the most of it and just live your authentic self?
Exactly. And I feel like part of me living my authentic self is sort of sharing that message in a fun and unexpected way. My husband always jokes that when I'm driving around in my hearse, people don't expect a clown to pop out because I'm usually dressed in bright colors with fun makeup on. But it does spark a lot of really awesome conversations. I've met some really cool people, even like just through the drive-through, like little things like that. It's really awesome.
There was one time you and I were on our way to a field trip at Countryside Memorial, which is a green burial ground in Lavernia, Texas. We stopped for gas and to potty, and you struck up a conversation with everyone in that gas station.
Sounds right. That happens to me a lot everywhere that I go, but I willingly invite it. For me, it's so fun. And the way I think about it is I never know if the person who's chatting with me at the gas station maybe need someone to talk to that they don't know. There's probably this really nice anonymity because people have shared some really deep things with me. And then I'm like, you'll never see me again. Bye. And like get into my car and I can drive off. But I think for a lot of people, it brings a really big comfort. And for me, if I can provide like a small level of comfort to other people through something as like quote unquote insignificant as like a chat at the checkout, then I'm more than happy to do that. Because for me, it just makes me feel really good. And I feel like you feel best whenever you help other people feel good.
Hmm. Oh, amen to that. I mean, that is. Yeah, have you always been this way, Colleen? Were you always the person that people could go to with their fears or their fears of dying or their ideas about death?
Honestly, yeah. I remember like from a very young age being cognizant of the fact that I would die, but not being as like debilitatingly terrified of it as like others around me. And I don't know if that was just something that I innately had in me or if it was like something that I observed, but I remember having that moment of realizing that the one universal human truth is that everyone is going to die. Like, if you have taken a breath into this world, you will have to take a breath out of this world. And I think for some people, the thought of that can be like really daunting. But like I said before, for me, it's really comforting. I know when my husband and I were first discussing having children, and again, most people don't want to think about children and death in the same sentence. But when my husband and I were thinking of having children, I remember having this thought of saying, okay, I know that if I am successful in bringing a child into this world, that the price of that eventually, hopefully, very far in the future, and selfishly, hopefully, not something I as a mother have to directly experience, but my child will eventually pass away. My child will eventually die. And the hope is that with his life, He's able to touch many people and he's able to live fully before he dies. But that was something for me that I had to, don't want to say grapple with because that's not the right word, but really like lament over and think about. And the fact that simultaneously with his first breath, that is also one breath closer to death and dying, if that makes sense.
Oh, it truly does. And wow, what an amazing way to think about bringing a life into this world, because you're right. You're bringing a mortal being into this world, and that means everything that mortality means. It means that each breath is precious. It means that each second is precious. And I have this feeling from what you just shared that that became even more focused and specific for you when you brought this little human into the world.
Yes, 110%. And even my son, Coffin, that's his name, inspires a lot of great conversations about death and dying, with his name being Coffin. Funnily enough, a lot of people go, and they don't quite know what to say. So now my husband and I have just taken to going, yeah, like that. And they go, yeah. And we're like, yep, that's his name. His name is Coffin.
Assume the death pose. Yes, it's exactly what you heard me say, coffin. So what precipitated that name? Like what made you choose that name? I mean, it's a memento mori. Like the fact that he's
Yes.
named that is a memento mori. But what caused you to choose that?
I just really liked the name Finn. I thought it was really cute, but I didn't necessarily like any of the long versions, like Phineas or Finnegan. They're really cute names, but I just didn't think that they were right for me and for my son. And so Coffin was a name that we chewed on for a while. And of course, there was a little bit of like hesitation because we knew that it not only was unique, but it could drum up negative emotions for other people with interacting with him. But I like to think that I just gave a really awesome gift, not only to Coffin, even though he may have to, constantly tell people no, like the but also to the people who get the chance to interact with him on a day-to-day basis. I think he's such, at least right now, he's only 6 months old, but he's such a happy and sweet baby that like part of me kind of hopes that having positive interactions with him and just knowing that his name is Coffin will somehow like put in the back of their head that like death isn't this always, I guess, always this horrific, awful, terrifying thing when, like we said, if you embrace it, it can really help guide you in super fun and unexpected ways. I can tell you, I didn't ever think I would be a death doula and a costume designer at the same time. But I think 5-year-old Colleen would think that was really cool. So I think I'm doing something right.
I think you are too. Oh my gosh, I think Coffin's going to be the coolest kid. Just like his mom, someone that everyone comes to talk to and just be with.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I think that would be great.
So you and I met, well, we met at our job when we were both working at SeaWorld San Antonio. And we started talking about death and dying. I told you that I worked at Abode, contemplative care for the dying, and that I was a death doula. And you were like, oh my God, tell me more. It's on my list of things I want to do before I die, is to become a death doula. And so you and I enrolled in, I think, the third cohort of the Abode End of Life Doula training. And now you're a volunteer at Abode and you're a certified death doula. What keeps you coming back to Abode in particular? And how does this organization align with who you are as a person?
The thing that I love about a boat, there's a lot of things. It would be a very long list if I listed all of them. But one of the things that I love most about a boat is the people, not just the guests that I get to interact with, but also the other volunteers and like fellow death doulas. It's really awesome to have a community of fellow death weirdos, I guess. I don't know how else to put it, but it's like, it's awesome having this community of fellow people who are super awesome and do other things outside of volunteering or outside of being a death doula. They live whole, full lives. But for a moment, in abode for however many hours you're there, you're unified in one purpose. And that one purpose is just providing comfort to another person, however that may be. That may be physical comfort, like actually helping them just with comfort measures, but it can also be sort of like the spiritual, emotional side of it as well. And for me, there's something so sacred about sharing space with others, not just physically, but also spiritually and emotionally. And the fact that we all show up with open hearts and open minds to serve others around us means that the interactions are always super awesome. And I get to learn so much and I get to experience so much that I can't help selfishly but to come back for more. It really fills up your cup and you learn a lot. And it's just really, really great. I hope that answered your question. I just think abode's really great.
It like and then some. I mean, and
Right.
one of my favorite things about you is I love it when people meet you for the first time because they are so enraptured by how you show up. I mean, you're usually dressed very colorfully. You also have this wonderfully colorful personality. And I think that's what's so unique about Abode and how you fit in so nicely is that for a place that deals with death on a daily basis, there's a lot of life there.
A
And you're
ton.
part of that when you walk in the door.
It's just really great.
Yeah, it truly is. You were always the person people would go to talk about death, and you have a healthy relationship about death. How did that lead to you wanting to really help people at the end of life?
All of that culminated when my father was sick. He was sick and dying of liver failure. And I wasn't a death doula at this time. I was a 21-year-old daughter doing her best to help her estranged father in the final months of his life. And having that experience shaped me a lot on my death positivity journey because I always felt really death positive. I was always someone who was comfortable around it. So the fact that my father was dying didn't necessarily make me uncomfortable. But what it did is it really made me examine the depth of my knowledge and the depth of my willingness to help others and to like dig deeper. And so for me, I helped my father pass in the best way that I could manage at the time to give him what he wanted. And I remember in a weird way feeling very proud that I was able to do that. And so, with that sort of like selfish pride feeling, I wanted to dive deeper and I wanted to think about where was that coming from and why was pride like the forefront of what I was thinking during a really difficult time. And what I think it really came down to is it wasn't so much that I had pride in what I had accomplished, but it's that I was proud of my dad, that he was willing to embrace the inevitable and that he, when there wasn't any more treatment, he knew how he wanted to die and he wasn't scared to express that. And I was just really grateful that I got to be someone who helped him achieve what his final wishes were within the confines of what we could do. And I knew after experiencing that that I wanted the ability to help other people do that. And it wasn't about me and what I wanted, but it was about how can I be a voice for others who maybe don't even know where to begin? Like it can be really daunting and overwhelming. You've never died before. I've never died before either, but it's like I can at least offer you a loose framework of what has seemed to be successful in the past, and then we can work together towards that common goal, which is ideally living fully before you die and then dying with dignity and comfort, um, achieving that quote unquote good death, if you will.
Oh my gosh. What a beautiful story. And I think that's exactly why Abode is such a great fit for you. You're such a great fit for Abode because that reflects our tenets as well. I mean, we want our vision is that we live in a world where death is not feared and we live fully until we die. And I think that's you are a personification of that, but also just your ethics and the way that you look at life. You really help others on that path as well. And so it's just
Thank you. I
exciting.
sure hope so.
One of the first conversations I had with you, I remember it well. We were in the supervisor office at SeaWorld, and you were asking everyone if they had their advance directives finished yet.
It's important. Again, it's one of those nuts and bolts things. People don't think to do it, but it can really provide a lot of comfort, not just for you as the person having the advance directive, but also a sense of comfort I feel like you could bestow upon a friend or family member that you are hoping will see through your advance directive or whatever the case is. Again, it's a small way that you can provide comfort, not just to yourself, but to another person around what is an uncomfortable topic generally.
I usually say that it's the best gift we can give those we leave behind is our
100%.
wishes, so that people aren't second guessing. And when they're already saddled with so much grief and bereavement and trying to pick up the pieces and putting their lives back together, we give them that gift of, hey, I figured this out so you don't have to.
Well, give them the extra gift of letting them know where it
Yeah.
is. Having your advance directive is super great, but if nobody can find it, it's not going to be as helpful as it could be. But again, that's what a death doula can help you out with. That's one thing personally, like I love doing in my doula practices, I guess, is helping them with like the administrative side of dying, because unfortunately there is one. Making sure you have enough death certificates, making sure that, all of those little pieces happen so you can continue living fully.
Absolutely. And you've been doing this, though. You've been a death doula before you got this certification. And I think that during our training, you were actually teaching us a lot. How did you learn all of these things? I mean, just those little details. These are things we teach in our doula training, but you came in with this knowledge.
I read a lot. I know you mentioned the reading list earlier on my business card. All of those books are books I've personally read. You can find it linked on my website at colleenmccool.com. It'll have the reading list. It'll take you right there. So you can see the dozens of books that I've read about death and dying. And where I think a lot of that knowledge comes from, though, honestly, like outside of the academic reading, is just listening. A lot of the time, I feel people, when they engage in conversations with others, are not truly listening. They're just waiting to respond. And so for me, I try very hard to make a very invested effort that when I'm speaking with someone, I want to genuinely be listening and taking in the knowledge and the information that they're giving me.
That's so true. We have one of our tenets is deep listening at Abode, and we actually have trainings for people to listen deeply because it sounds like something that should just come naturally. But I feel like as we go further and further down this rabbit hole of technology and everyone kind of shutting off and not engaging with each other, that people have lost that skill of deep listening. And that's one of the biggest gifts we can give to people at the end of life is listen to their stories, let them talk.
Definitely. They want to. A lot of the time, they want to. And
Oh,
like you
yeah.
said, letting them talk and deeply listening was huge. And it also builds so much respect between you and the guest, but also you and the guest's family as well. Because to the guest's family, as much as they love the person that is passing away, they may have heard that story 1,000 times that they're telling because it's an important story to that person. But it's such a special gift to be someone to listen to that story for the first time. And I think it's the little things like that that we kind of take for granted.
And it's so simple. It doesn't necessarily mean it's easy, but it's a simple thing we can give.
I have to agree.
I wonder if you can share with us a story where, maybe that deep listening that you did with somebody that you saw them really being benefited by what you were providing, or just some time that you really made an impact on either someone at the end of life or their loved ones.
Honestly, the first thing that comes to mind isn't a story that involves anyone who was actively dying. The first story that pops into my head is shortly after we had Coffin, we had to go. I guess we didn't have to go. I chose to go and get our wills updated because this was a huge life change. And I knew that, heaven forbid, if something were to happen to us, I wanted to make sure my son was taken care of. I had already had a will drawn up from previously, so we had to get it amended. And in order to do that, you have to go in and get a notary to like sign off on the changes that you've made. And my husband and I went into the place we were going to get stuff notarized with our baby, all happy and cheery. And the lady that we sat down in front of was like, "Oh, how exciting! Like, what are we here for?" And I was like, "Oh, like we're signing our wills and like last directives and power of attorney and all that kind of good stuff." And her expression immediately changed, and she immediately got like very like somber and stoic almost, and she was like, "Oh, like what's going on?" And I was like, "Nothing." And she was like, "What do you mean?" And I was like, "We're just being prepared." And she's like, "But y'all just seem so young and full of life." And I was like, "Exactly, this is the perfect time for me to do it." And so I was able to chat with her about, being a death doula and sort of all these things. I was able to give her some resources for her to be able to go out and collect the information she needed to have her own will and final directives like drawn up. But to me, that was one of those like micro interactions that I was able to have with someone out and about where death wasn't on the forefront of their mind. But my hope is that after having a positive conversation about it, maybe it's not at the forefront of her mind, but it at least kind of gets those gears turning for her, that she can then go and have a positive interaction about death.
Oh my gosh, that is perfect. That's such a perfect example. And I love what you said about I am perfectly healthy and happy. This is the time to do it. Why do you think that is?
Well, one, just like the actual logistics of it, I can say for certain I have all my faculties about me. I can say for certain that I have enough energy to go and get my documents notarized and things like that. But the other great thing is, like I mentioned previously, we had a will already drawn up. And I can say from the experience of having to start one from scratch versus just having to amend one, that it's a huge help that that's all I had to do was get it amended and get it re-signed. So for me, now, in the hopes that I live another 30, 40, 50 years, I can amend it every decade or so as my life sort of evolves and changes. And to me, it just provides a really great comfort that I know my loved ones aren't going to have to stress about and worry about what I want done with my clown collection, or where I want my vintage clothes to go, or where my son's going to be taken care of. So I think it's just really comforting all around, not just for me, but hopefully also for the loved ones that I will leave behind eventually.
The best gift you can give them. Has there ever been a time, though, when your disposition and your fluency in death has rubbed people the wrong way? Or,
Definitely. Yeah, I driving my hearse especially, I would get a lot of comments like death isn't funny or death isn't a joke. Like I don't know why you're like I was mocking death or dying or people who were dying, and my response was always genuinely, I understand that it's not a joke. Like I don't think it's funny, but it is inevitable and it's part of my life and my existence. That's why I started handing out those little business cards, because if my vehicle is making you uncomfortable, I knew that that was because there was some unresolved issue with your own mortality or an unresolved issue with death and dying. And so I felt like instead of getting defensive about it, because that wasn't going to help or be productive, the best thing that I could do would be to offer resources for people to kind of investigate on their own, look into things at their own pace, and sort of see where that disconnect in their relationship with their own mortality came from, because I think that's at the root of what most people's discomfort is. We talk about it a lot at Abode, this sort of thought that like we know everyone around us is going to die, but not me. Like I'm the exception to that rule, and I think a lot of people embrace that and genuinely just sort of go through life with that sort of thought in the back of their head. And I just don't know if that, it may be comfortable, but I don't know if necessarily the most growth comes from your comfort. And I think in order to grow as a person, you have to do things that make you uncomfortable sometimes. And if thinking about death makes you uncomfortable, that's probably a really great sign that you should start thinking about death more.
oh, I completely agree. My best teachers in life put me in that discomfort zone Because, like you said, that's where the growth happens. That's when the learning happens. That's when the aha moments happen. And if you can
Exactly.
help someone get there and be there and start to be comfortable with the uncomfortable, I think that's the road I want to be on. It sounds like you're on it too.
We'll be on it arm in arm,
I like
skipping
it.
down it together. That
Yes,
sounds fun.
strolling down. Well, Colleen, my gosh, I could talk to you all day. I think we need to have you on frequently because it's like a masterclass just having this conversation with you. When you're doing all of the things, you're a mother, you're a wife, you're a costume designer, you're a death doula, you're a friend. How do you fill your cup? How do you keep going? How do you take care of yourself?
I dress up every day. That is how I take care of myself honestly and genuinely. I take the time to dress and put on things that make me happy, things that bring me joy, things that may bring other people joy. For me, that is the greatest act of daily self care and love that I give myself. I put on things that give me that serotonin and that dopamine, and it gives me like this armor sometimes I feel like where I can just like go out and I know that I can accomplish anything because I have on a glittery vest and rubber duck earrings. And people who wear those things can obviously do anything.
I think so too. I wore my cactus earrings today in honor of you.
I
Yes,
love them.
yes. One thing we ask all of our guests at the end of our episodes is, what do you want to do before you go?
That's such a good question. I think I want to make a lot of fun art and wear a lot of cool clothes and collect a lot more clowns.
I think that's the key to life right there. More clowns, please.
More clowns. Bring on the clowns.
Bring on the clowns. I remember when we were doing our death doula certification together, I decided that I wanted to have you design my death shroud. And so that is what I want to do before I go is get with you, get that plan down on paper. Let's start designing. I want to try it on. I want to see how it feels, make sure the fabric's right, so that when I'm
100%.
at the end of my life, I'm as comfortable as can be.
And fabulous.
And
Don't
of
forget
course,
fabulous.
fabulous always. Oh my gosh, Colleen, thank you so much just for taking time out of your incredibly busy schedule to sit down and talk with me about all things death. You are amazing. I'm so happy to call you a friend.
Same to you, Natalie. It's always such a pleasure getting to share this existence with you and getting to talk about death, but also fun stuff. Well, I guess death is kind of fun stuff in this context,
It
but you know what
is.
I mean.
It is. It's serious but fun. And I think
Yeah,
you can have a foot in both worlds.
I think so for sure.
All right. Take care. I'll see you soon.
Sounds good. Bye.
This episode is brought to you by Abode's Death Cafe. Our objective is to increase awareness of death with a view to helping people make the most of their finite lives. To learn more about Death Cafe, go to abodehome.org. Oh my gosh, y'all, wasn't Colleen the best? I mean, the moment I met her, the first moment I met her, I'll never forget. Like, I went into her office, and her office was decorated with all of this clown stuff and beautiful artwork. And we just started talking about death and death doulas and abode. And I knew I had found a kindred spirit with her for sure. I just, she walks the walk, She doesn't shy away from the difficult decisions or the difficult conversations. She drives a hearse. But I like also what she said is like, death is not a joke, and she's not poking fun at it or being cheeky with it or at all, but just she embraces it. And it's the reality for all of us. I mean, none of us get out of here alive. And by knowing that and embracing that truth, you wear the cool stuff, you decorate your house with clowns, you have little boys named Coffin, and you just live your life in the way that it's meant to be lived without fear or holding back. So I think you're going to see and hear a lot more from Colleen McCool-Pierce. She's pretty special, and she's pretty special to us at Abode. But thank you so much for tuning in. And you know, take her advice. Get started on your will, your advance directives. Let those be the big gifts that you give for the people that you will leave behind. And that way you don't have to worry about them. You can just live your life as freely and fabulously as Miss Colleen. See you next time. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Before You Go, the official podcast of Abode Contemplative Care for the Dying. At Abode, we believe death is not a medical event, and we are not medical professionals. We're just sharing our opinions, and these opinions shouldn't be taken as medical advice. You can find us online on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. This episode was edited by Make Your Day Richer.